So I deplore identity politics, as you probably know if you frequent my channel. I think that it's a terrible thing. We should judge everyone as individuals. I don't want to see the government make any laws that are specific to a race or a gender or things like that. We should all be treated as equal. We shouldn't have things like affirmative actions. I think hate crime laws are bogus because often what happens is they're used to be political and only skew one way. And identity politics leads to this narrative where we have this cultural Marxism where everyone's just viewed as their skin color, their gender, etc. And we break into those groups and say half those groups are oppressor and half are oppressed. What ends up happening is when we try to say things of general hatred and things like that, and we're trying to condemn it, oftentimes people can't hide their cultural Marxism, and you can tell by their reaction that they still have contempt for people that are the oppressor groups, such as white people or men or Christians or people that are born in the America or people that are wealthy, etc. And I find that to be ridiculous. This little stuff squeezes out in areas you wouldn't expect. The last time I did a video on this, it was on the idea of the Democrats when they were putting forth their condemning hatred resolution as a result of Ilhan Omar supposedly saying anti-Semitic things. So they sought to skirt the issue by saying we condemn all hate. And inevitably what they did was say, we condemn all hate against minorities. Here's a bunch of white people that were condemning committing hatred against minorities. And the examples they used were fine, but they never bothered to talk about, can you have hatred against white people, hatred against men, hatred against, whatever, any of these groups. It's real easy to just have a resolution that says we condemn all hatred. But when you make it unique to oppressed groups or minority or marginalized groups, it's just another clever way of saying, oh, and we don't think that there's a problem with being bigoted towards people that are in the oppressor groups. And I think that's ridiculous. Just say condemn all hate. That's it. And so we see another example of this today. And I think it's important to talk about this stuff because often it gets lost in the shovel. We could have university courses that talk about the evil of whiteness or the evils of men and the patriarchy or the evils of Christians, etc. And as long as that narrative is allowed to go unchallenged, then we're going to see more and more of that come up. I'm not saying I'm a victim or anything like that. I'm just saying if we're going to condemn all hatred, then we should do so equally. So that's why I'm doing this video. Let's look today at Rahm Emanuel, who's the mayor of Chicago, and he's going out there condemning the idea of Smollett having all these charges dropped. Now, I agree with everything Emanuel's saying. I watched the press conference, and he's saying this is a whitewash of justice. This is especially significant because Emanuel is a big ally of Barack Obama. He's a big liberal mayor. And so for even him to think this is a whitewash of justice seems to be a big deal. And you can check out my other video and other resources that show why this is a travesty that these charges were dropped, especially when they're saying, and we still think he was guilty. However, where Emmanuel starts to lose me is when he starts talking about the people that will be hurt by this crime. And there are a lot of people hurt. So let's go with what he talks about right here. I'll read a portion of this. Second is what I would call the ethical cost. The ethical cost is as a person who was in the House of Representatives when we tried to pass Shepherd legislation that dealt with hate crimes and put them on the books, Obama signed it into the law. Next paragraph. Gay men and women who will come forward and one day say they are a victim of a hate crime now will be doubted. People of faith, Muslim or any other religious faith who will be a victim of hate crimes. People of also all walks of life, of backgrounds of race, of ethnicity, of sexual orientation. Now this casts a shadow on whether they're telling the truth, and he did this all in the name of self-promotion. And he used the laws of hate crime legislation that all of us collectively over the years have put in the books to stand up to be values that embody in what we believe. Okay, there's nothing uniquely in that I disagree with. Granted, he's focusing on these minority groups. That's okay. I don't really mind it. It's what he's going to say here in a moment, which I'll get to. And this is just a transcript that I'm reading of his comments, in case you're wondering. But this is the part that when buttress with that. So he's basically saying, oh, minorities that come forward in the future might not be believed because it's small. And that's true. That's a fair point to make. Now, let's combine that with what he says here, and quoting. But then I cannot stress that in a time when you have people bringing a moral equivalency in Virginia between bigots and those fighting bigotry, you have a person using hate crime laws that are on the books to protect people who are minorities from violence, to then turn around and use those laws to advance your career and your financial reward. Is there no decency in this man? Of course, he's right about the end of it. He's using this all for self-satisfaction, and that is a terrible thing. But notice how he couldn't help but take a swipe at Trump. What he's talking about here is Charlottesville, which I've done videos on why this is a lie. Trump condemned white supremacists, he condemned KKK, condemned Nazis, and all three of the speeches that he gave. But again, this talking point from the Democrats persists. So he's saying, he's implying that there were people, and he's implying Trump, in Charlottesville had a moral equivalency between bigots and those fighting bigotry. Here we go again with the left trying to say that Antifa's this noble. They say they're anti-fascist, therefore they must be anti-fascist and anti-bigoted. No, that's not the case at all. And we've seen them target people racially. We've seen them commit all kinds of heinous crimes. People aren't saying there's a moral equivalency. They're saying both sides are bad. And oftentimes Antifa is in fact racist or classist or bigoted. We know that's the truth. Just because you claim that you're fighting bigotry doesn't mean you can't be a bigot. And I'm sick and tired of this narrative being put forth. And so what we will see is in conjunction of what these two statements are, he's saying, oh, the people that will really be hurt by Smollett are minorities that will later be the victims of hate crimes. And so when they come forth, they won't be believed. And, you know, this is especially heinous because we have people in power that are trying to say that there's a moral equivalency between people that are bigots and people that are fighting bigotry, like in Charlottesville. Now think of what happened here. You had Jesse Smollett, who is someone who hates Trump, lie about this entire thing and fake a hoax that blamed white people and Trump supporters. And the media went along with this narrative and talked about how evil white people and Trump supporters were, and how terrible and disgusting and how violent even in Chicago they were, and this is Trump's America, etc. And so then after we find out it's all a hoax, the people that are lamenting this going, oh my God, what Smollett did was terrible. Yes, you're right. And the real victims are, you know, minorities that may be the victims of hate crimes in the future. Yeah, okay, that could be true. And by the way, Trump in Charlottesville, and that was bad. No mention of, oh, what about the MAGA hat wearers that are routinely said that they're wearing a KKK hood, just like the, you know, Covington kids were? That it's the equivalency of a white supremacy symbol. No mention of, oh, and sorry that they got smeared as well. Notice Smollett didn't apologize to MAGA hat wearing people or white people for starting this lie. He said he'll continue to fight for marginalized communities in his speech after being all the charges were dropped. And now we see Rahm Emanuel. Same thing. So imagine, let's reverse the scenario. Let's say a white actor who's struggling, or a middling white actor, claims that he was attacked by a bunch of Hispanic-looking gentlemen that were waving a Mexican flag and talking in Spanish and shouting at him that he's a racist because, you know, build the wall, etc. And they beat him up. And then a bunch of pundits on Fox News started to say, see, it's the Hispanics, it's these illegal immigrants, it's groups like La Raza, we need to do something about them. And then we found out that this white actor had committed a hoax. Do you really think that the story that comes from the mayor and from all the people then will be like, you know who the real victims are here? Poor white people that may be attacked by Hispanics in the future, and now they won't be believed. Of course not. The entire narrative would be, oh my God, can you believe how racist this white scumbag was? That he tried to malign all Hispanic people and tried to make some argument about illegal immigration. What a disgusting dirtbag. And they'd be right to make that argument, by the way. That would be a disgusting racist making that argument. Just like Smollett's a disgusting racist and bigot and someone attacking people for political beliefs. He wasn't just, the incorrectness here is he was advocating things for personal, he committed this hoax for personal financial rewards, but he also did so in a way that he could advance his narrative of what he wanted politically. That's the second part of the reason why he did it. And so for Rahm Emanuel to come out and try to snipe at Trump and his supporters by default, or by extension of that, by trying to bring up something like Charlottesville, totally ignoring the fact that they were completely maligned in this. It's just ridiculous. Again, I'm not saying that that's the big issue and something like that, that we need to be able to focus primarily on that. I'm just saying that it's ridiculous that this is the type of stuff that happens over and over again. It's okay to attack white people. It's okay to smear, men. It's okay to smear MAGA hat wearers. They're never, any of that's okay, even when they're smeared and it turns out it was a hoax. The real victims, the future people that will be, that the evil MAGA hat wearers will attack. That's the real victims. So I just found it ridiculous and I thought it was worth talking about. So check out, I'll link all the statements you can see for yourself. He never mentions Emmanuel, or no one in this whole story that's been quoted, it's been involved in it, is mentioned, oops, and we feel bad that we maligned Trump supporters and that it was a very terrible thing to do. No one's came out and apologized for that. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be putting some new material up soon, and have a good one.